Welcome to this lesson. This lesson is going to be a bit tough because we are going to use Redux as a part of this tutorial. So what we are going to do is to get the list of products from the server we just implemented in the previous course, but this time the data should come from a Redux store. So to implement that, first of all, we need to know what Redux is. Let's check this chart. Here is the workflow of Redux. I'm quite sure that you remember the React component that we have used already in this project. A React component like a products component get a list of products from the parent component, which is app.js. But this time it's gonna get that from the Redux store. We are going to use Redux as a parent for the product component instead of app.js. So what are the benefits of Redux? There are lots of benefits in Redux, making your state predictable and manage multiple state of component together in a central place, which is a store. Let's review the workflow of a Redux application. When we are in the view, like in products, to get the list of products, we need to call an action. Here is the number 1. An action should happen. When we call an action creator happens, and this action creator dispatch to the Redux store. Inside the Redux store, there are two things. The first one is current state, and the second one is a bunch of reducers. Based on the action you dispatch to the store, a reducer fires and change the state to another state. Let's say in this case, change the list of products from empty array to a list of products that comes from the server. And then at this step, the reducer, when return the data, the store update the view based on the new data, which is in this case the list of products. The question is, where do we need to send the AJAX request? It's here in the action creator. So inside the reducer, you do not have any asynchronous actions like sending requests and stuff like this. There is only changing or modifying the state. So now that we know how Redux works, it's time to get to code and start coding. Here is the process to add Redux to our project. First of all, we need to update the task manager. Let's go to the task manager here, and we are going to work on this. I just set it to yellow and the action status is active. The next one, based on our plan, is gonna be creating a branch, add Redux products. Click here inside the master, create new branch and set branch name to add Redux products and press enter. Next step is gonna be installing Redux and React Redux and Redux Func. By having these 3 packages, we are able to apply Redux to our React application. I just copy this code from here, open a new terminal, and then paste it right here. Press enter and wait a while to install all 3 packages. After installing this, it's time to create types, because based on the diagram that we have here, we need to create an action, and each action has a type. So we are going to create the types at the first step. To do that, right-click on src folder and create new file, set the file name to types.js, and set the type name to fetch products. I just export that, const fetch underline products. Make it all capital because it's a type, and set it to a literal string exactly like this constant name. That's it. We have done these steps. It's time to go for step 8, and it's creating an action. And let's go and create a folder actions, and inside that we are going to implement the actions for products. Right click on src folder, new folder, actions. Inside actions, right click new file and set the file name to product actions.js. Inside product actions, we are going to export a functions, export const fetch actions. This function accepts no parameters because we are not going to filter the products. We are going to get the list of all products. So it should be empty array, and it just returned a new function which is like this. It is a function that accepts a dispatch, and this function body is gonna be like this. Here we need to dispatch an action. In this function, first of all, we need to get data from server. Fetch /API /products. I'm going to use async await style. Set this function as a async and set this fetch method as a await. I'm going to set the result inside res, and it's time to get res.data, which contains the list of products, and dispatch that as action. So it's gonna be like this. Dispatch accept an object, and this object contains two values. The first one is type, which is gonna be of type fetch products, and the second one is gonna be payload, and the payload is res.data. We need to import fetch products like this. Press tab and it's gonna get imported automatically from types file. That's it. We just implemented the fetch products, not fetch actions. Fetch products. Let's go back to the plan. Here we were supposed to implement fetch products, and it's time to create a reducer. If you check the diagram, we have done with creating actions, and it's time to create the reducer. Let's go for it. Inside reducer folder, create product reducers. Right click on src, new folder, reducers. Inside reducers, right click, new file, product reducers.js. Inside product reducer, I'm going to define a function products reducer, and it's going to get two parameters. The first one is current state, and the second one is the action. The current state, I just set it to empty object by default, and for the action, I set the action like this. And inside this function, we are going to use a switch case, and inside this switch case, the value we're gonna evaluate is action.type. So here in the case part, if action.type is fetch product, what I'm gonna do is to set action.payload inside the state. So I just return the new state. Items is gonna be action.payload. action.payload. For the default case, let's just return a state. And don't forget, we need to export this. So by having this simple reducer, when I get new data from actions, I update those data inside the Redux store. So we have done this step, and it's time to go and create a store. If you check the diagram, we have done this one and the reducer one, and it's time to go the main part, which is a store. To implement that, it is super easy. Just go to the root folder inside src, right click, new file, and set the file name to store.js. Inside the store.js, we need to import create a store and apply middleware from Redux. After that, it's time to import func from React func. Inside the Redux, we need to import combined reducer 2. So the beginning code of the store is gonna be just importing some stuff, and the action code here is define the initial state. I just set it to an empty object, and then create the store itself. Const store accept multiple parameters. The first one is reducers. So I'm going to use combine reducers, and inside the combined reducer, I want to combine all the reducer I have together. This case, I just have one reducer, and it is product reducer. So I just set it like name value, products equal to products reducer. Don't forget, you need to import product reducer from /reducers/product reducers, and it should be inside curly brackets because it's not a default export, it's a named export. The second parameter of create a store is initial state. I just set it to initial state. And the last parameter is middlewares. We are going to use Redux func middlewares because inside our actions, we are sending async requests to the server to get the data. So that's why we have to use Redux func to handle this type of actions. So to use apply middleware, first of all, we need to import compose function. So what I'm gonna do is to use compose function to compose all middlewares together. The other middlewares we are going to use along with Redux func is Redux DevTools for Chrome. To use that, I just define const compose enhancer equal to window dot Redux DevTools extension compose. If this exists, what I'm gonna do is to use this, else I use the default compose function. By having this line of code, I can send all information about the Redux store to Chrome Redux DevTools, and I can monitor whatever happened there, including actions, status, and any other data. For the third parameter of create a store, I'm going to use compose enhancer, and inside that, I just use apply middleware, and the middleware that I'm gonna use is func. At the end, don't forget to export default store. So by having this 14 lines of code, I just created a Redux store. let's get back to the plan. It's time to use a store. We need to go to app.js and import a store there and wrap all components inside provider. Let's go to app.js and then import store from store. And we are going to use a store inside the render function. Wrap the whole div inside provider. Provider is a component from React Redux library. I'm using this component to wrap the whole components inside provider, and provider accepts a value which is a store. I just set the store attribute to the store that comes from Redux store. Close it and cut the closing tag and paste it at the end of div. That's it with the configuration of app.js. Let's go back to plan. It's time to connect products component to the Redux store. To do that, we need to go to products.js and then use connect function there. Inside component folder, select products, and instead of export default, just make it simple class name, and at the very end, use export default. And here I'm going to use connect. Connect accept two parameters. The first one is a function that accept state and return an object that define which part of a state we are gonna use, which part of Redux state we are going to use. Here only we are going to use the products. And it's gonna come from state.products. So this is the first parameter of connect. The second parameter of connect is list of actions. Let's create an object, and the actions we are gonna use is fetch product. So here press tab to import fetch product. The connect function itself return another function, and another function accept a parameter, and the parameter is the name of component we are going to connect, and the component name is product. So don't forget to import fetch products and connect at the very top of the screen. I just import connect. It's coming from React Redux library, and it's time to import fetch product from actions / products actions. That's good. I just imported the fetch products action right here, and here is the changes that I have made inside the product.js. Let's go back to the plan. So it's time to fetch products inside component did mount. Let's go to product.js component and define component did mount like this. Inside that, I'm going to call fetch products, but it should be called from props. This.props.fetch products like this. After calling fetch products in the component did mount, we need to update the product.js at the very end and set the last line to state.products.items. The reason is inside the product reducer. If you open the product reducer right here, you can see that for product reducer we set the items variable. So inside the component, we need to use the items to get access to the list of products that comes from server. The next step is gonna be updating package.json. Let's open package.json file, and inside that we need to set a proxy. And by having this proxy, we do not need to prefix the server name in each request. So the server I'm gonna use is in port 5000. It should be https://localhost:5000, and put a comma here. That's it about setting proxy. And the next one is gonna be running the server. To run the server, first of all, I just close all opening terminal, open a new terminal, and run npm run server to run the server that we have created in previous lesson at this port, and open another terminal. And in this terminal, I'm going to run again npm start to run the React application. If you run the project, you will get an error, and it says that property map undefined cannot read. To fix this issue, what we need to do is to go to product.json, and inside the map function, at the very beginning of loading products component, the product is null. So I need to set a conditional rendering here. If this dot props dot products does not exist, show loading message. Else, I just cut this UL completely and move it right here. Don't forget to change this to question mark because it's a two value condition. If it's null, it just render loading, but if there is a products array, it just render this list of item. So the last change inside product action, the data that comes from fetch method need to be converted to JSON. Const data res dot like this, and then pass this data to payload. And at this line inside product.json, the JSON function return a promise, so we need to make it await like this. So let's run the project and check the result. As you see here, I have a list of products right here, and this products comes from the server. Don't forget to open the Redux dev tools and click on products, and inside the difference you can see that by running this action, this change has been done inside in your state. It means that your state changed from empty to list of products. You can step back and run it again by clicking on play icon. At the very first it's loading, and then it just sends the list of products into the screen. So that's it about Redux and fetching data from server and showing in the screen. So we have done with the coding in this lesson, and it's time to go to repository part. And for these changes, I need to set add Redux products comment, press Ctrl or Command Enter, and then click on this icon to publish your changes to the GitHub repository. Also here, set this action as a done and make the state like done. Then go to GitHub repository for this project to merge the pull request right here. Create pull request, merge, and confirm merge. At the very end, it's time to update your current branch to master, and then click on this icon to get the latest change from the server. So by having this, we are ready to implement new features, and until that time, bye-bye.